and welcome to Talking Kid vs. Cat, episode 11. I'm your host, Mr. Demon Cat, and this is a podcast about all things Kid vs. Cat animated series related, as we welcome Kid vs. Cat fans who finish playing brand new Has-Been Hotel clean versions on my main and second channels on YouTube. Coop Burtonburger has been with his dad and his sister in Bootsville for a long time. He also has been with his best friend named Dennis Chan for a long time too. They have been busy doing a lot of work at home in Bootsville. Coop also had a Mr. Catless free time in his room, playing retro video games, and also going to bed at night. He had to stay out of trouble after making all of his wrongdoings. Wait a second! There's more other Kid vs. Cat characters we also haven't talked about a lot lately. This time, I also started seeing Coop Burtonburger's grandparents. Did I just say Coop Burtonburger's grandparents? Yes, I did. Today we're going to talk about Coop Burtonburger's grandparents. This is something we've also seen less often in Kid vs. Cat. I know for a fact that they have way less appearances than Coop, Cat, Millie, and his dad. First, let's go over the looks of Coop's grandparents. Her possible name on the left of my screen is Grandmother Burtonburger. His possible name on the right of my screen is Grandfather Burtonburger. They're Coop and his dad's grandparents. In the Kid vs. Cat vs. Christmas half-hour special, I noticed their grandmother's hair color is gray. She also has her blue jacket on, her scarf, and her light purple gloves on. I also noticed their grandfather is wearing his glasses on his head. He also has his white beard and his white mustache on his face. He even has his gray jacket on. Both his grandmother and his grandfather wear those, but only during winter months like December, January, February, and sometimes March. The first thing that Coop's grandparents did is call Coop's father on the old telephone. Coop's grandparents first appeared in the Kid vs. Cat vs. Christmas 20-minute episode. They kinda had problems calling Coop and his father while being in snowy weather outside. They also have their suitcases and bags ready to travel to visit Coop and his family in person. Coop's grandmother might also be the first family member after Coop to discover the truth about Cat. Coop's father Bert was not, because he wasn't born in the 2000s or in the 20th century. Coop's grandfather could also be the first of the family, and he plays a role in fighting Cat while being with other people. Wait a second, I also haven't heard what their voices sound like. I'm gonna play what Coop's grandmother's voice sounds like.
Oh, well, we'll try out the rockers later, but first, we want to have fun with the grandkids.
And this is what Coop's grandfather's voice sounds like.
It's okay, Coop. We know you have better things to do than hang out with us old folks.
Oh, so they do sound like old men and old women, huh? Okay. Well, their voices also sound good too. I can tell that Coop's grandparents are communicating with their ears in some sounds. So far, we have one appearance for Coop's grandparents in Kid vs. Cat. But what else did they do? I even saw the exact same persons playing some sports outside in a hot sunny weather outside in a different place that's over 80 degrees Fahrenheit, where there's also some sand being close to them. There's also Coop's grandparents going on the ride using their camels. Well, they sat on the camel to resume going on the trip using their camels. There was also no snow happening outside in December, where Campbell also sees the sun outside. But before that, I also saw Coop's grandparents go on a snowy ride in the cold winter weather outside. Coop's grandparents also changed into their clean, warm clothes after getting out the cold winter weather. If you want Coop's grandparents to stay warm again, you gotta have them take off their jackets. Meanwhile, back in Bootsville, Coop, Millie, and their dad began waiting for their grandparents to arrive at Coop's house in that place. They also began making chocolate chip cookies, some brownies, and even some fried chicken in the kitchen downstairs. As they resumed staying home, Coop's grandparents answered Coop's father twice. They let them know that they're 12 hours away from going to Bootsville. There's even Coop's grandparents going on a hot air balloon ride too, where they go up high in the sky to reach the highest close to the blue sky as much as possible. As Coop's grandparents started going to the beach, they began being in the water and in the ocean. They even changed into their swimsuits. Coop's grandmother got close to touching the water in the ocean, and she even saw Coop's grandfather attempt to get close to her. Coop's grandfather also became afraid of sharks. OMG, why is he shouting? Coop's grandfather also got close to the sharks using his legs, but thankfully he got on the board safely. Thank goodness they did not get Coop's grandfather's legs. Coop's grandfather, however, still has his swimsuit shorts on, meaning he's half naked in the ocean outside. I'm surprised he also did not fall off in the ocean again. Well, he stayed with Coop's grandmother. Despite the month of December happening in other countries they lived in, Coop's grandparents stayed in the ocean over and over again in an over 80 degrees Fahrenheit weather until they got out of the ocean. As they got out of the ocean, Coop's grandparents entered the final place to go before meeting their grandkids in Bootsville. Like, how long does it take for Coop's grandparents to go to Bootsville? Over 15, 16, 17, or 18 hours for Coop's grandparents to go to Bootsville. Coop's grandparents also asked someone for an Uber or a taxi to take themselves to Bootsville, not knowing how long they will get there. As they look for a vehicle to drive, imagine Coop's grandparents finding Carl Johnson from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas driving a taxi. It wasn't seen in Kid vs. Cat, but Coop's grandparents found a truck to drive to. They also used a map to get to Bootsville, too. Their grandkids named Coop and Millie began falling asleep hours before midnight. As the sun went down after 7 p.m., the snow began to spread on the floor across Coop's house. Like, why did Coop and Millie lose an hour of sleep? There's also Coop's grandparents losing 3 hours of sleep while driving to Bootsville, and it's not a good thing for both of them. But less than 25 minutes later, Coop's grandparents finally arrived in Bootsville. This time they met Coop and Millie in person for the first time in that place. They also began meeting Coop's father in person too. Midnight struck in Bootsville, and Coop's grandfather was partially covered in snow. Well, he got rid of the snow on top of his head and on most of his face. I also noticed Coop's grandparents also changed back into their winter clothes too, and that's the only thing they did during winter months so far. They also got inside Coop's house before going to bed late. 5 hours later, Coop's grandparents woke up in the morning to get themselves energized. As they finished eating in the morning, they met Coop and Millie twice in December before the New Year. A Captain Blastoid mini rocket was nowhere to be found in the living room until today. Coop's grandparents gave their grandson Coop a Captain Blastoid mini rocket as a gift. Coop opened up his present, and he felt excited about it. Can you believe it? You've got to see it to believe it for Coop and his grandparents. And of course, Coop resumed hanging out with his grandparents in his house in Bootsville. When you think of Coop spending more time being with his father and less time being with his grandparents, they do not always live together in Bootsville. Hold on a second, can we go back to the Kid vs. Cat episode guide? I've not yet seen Coop's grandparents appear a little more in Kid vs. Cat. If I keep finding all the possibilities that Coop's grandparents made in the show, then I will add them to this episode. Aha! Ha! I found another Kid vs. Cat episode featuring Coop's grandparents. This time, I also watched another Kid vs. Cat episode featuring Coop's grandparents. It's the Kid vs. Cat episode, Keep On Walking. The episode begins with the title card showing Cat getting close to the chair that an old man and an old woman use. The explosion happened in the beginning of the Keep On Walking episode. The episode continues with Coop, his father Bert, his best friend Dennis, and his sister Millie going outside to check what happened. Dennis Chan has also never seen Coop's grandparents until this happened. Well, look at that! Dennis Chan also began seeing Coop's grandparents in person. Coop, his father, and his sister also began meeting them in person too. It's the second time I've seen Coop's grandmother and his grandfather in Kid vs. Cat. But what did they do in Bootsville? Here comes Coop's grandparents using a hot air balloon ride to meet Coop and his family in that place. I can also see Coop's grandfather wearing a light blue shirt on, his long white sleeves, and also his brown pants on, with a belt that he's also wearing too. The color of his beard are now all white at the moment. I even saw Coop's grandmother carrying a skateboard, in which Fiona, Coop, and Kyle also have to go somewhere. Second time, Bert and Millie also met them in Kid vs. Cat. 30 seconds later, after going inside Coop's house, Coop's grandparents also began taking a tour of Coop's house. As they went into the living room, both of these old persons also took a look at what the people were doing. Coop's grandparents also began seeing Cat the alien in person, but they also saw him attempt to confuse people, thinking those chairs may break into pieces. If you think of Coop's grandparents from Kid vs. Cat taking a house tour, like a man who survived 50 states in 50 days, named Ryan Trahan, who survived living in the most expensive Airbnb houses, they might also think that Coop's house in Bootsville is exciting to live in. Coop's grandparents would also give Coop's house a 10 out of 10 rating if they like it. As they resume taking a house tour, they also begin seeing Cat attempt to use sharp claws to rip something into small pieces. Several minutes later, Mr. Cat also began seeing Coop's grandparents take a seat that keeps on rocking. Coop's grandparents also resumed hanging out with their grandkids, and Coop's father a little longer than expected. As Coop gets out of the rocking chair, he resumes making fun of Mr. Cat in the kitchen downstairs. Coop's grandmother began hanging out with Coop and Millie to watch TV in the living room. As they go outside, they also begin setting up a basketball court that is close to Coop's house. Coop's grandfather also began watching them play basketball. His grandmother tries shooting the basketball, but Coop's father tries to take her away. Oh, now it's Coop's grandmother trying to carry Coop's father. How did she do it? It's probably her arms carrying him, huh? That's insane. Well, she still has her basketball in her hands. Coop's grandparents resumed hanging out with Millie at the table, but something happened outside again. What do I hear? Another noise made outside? I don't know yet. I can also see Coop get to his friend Dennis quickly by running. 4 hours later, Coop's grandparents experienced nighttime happening in Bootsville. But where did they go? They probably lost their son Coop for a little bit, and now they're still looking. Coop became dirty right as I saw his grandparents attempt to get back in the hot air balloon ride. His grandparents asked Coop if they want to go on the hot air balloon ride, and Coop says, "Yes, I want to go on the hot air balloon ride with you guys." Coop and his grandparents need to figure out a way to fix problems somewhere in Bootsville. As Coop begins going on a hot air balloon ride, I've never seen him do something else the least amount of times. Does anyone know what place Coop and his grandparents went? That feels strange. An abandoned place they went to in Bootsville. That's odd. The flashlights have been used to find something you cannot see in the dark. Broken chairs, dusty floors, all other things have turned into nightmares. Hold on a second. I think this is also the abandoned chair store I've seen in Kid vs. Cat, one of the rarest places to go to in Bootsville. Mr. Cat also went inside there. Well, he tried tricking Coop. Coop and his grandparents found the secret room, the one where television, radio, and the controls are inside. The entry to the store was easy for them to do. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Did you see that? Did you see that? Mr. Cat powered the abandoned chair store and made it go up using the rockets. The electricity and rockets are being turned off as the abandoned chair store... Whoa! Chaos Mod has been turned on as Coop and his grandparents bring down the chair store very carefully on the floor. Oh, what's this? A floating chair store making a 360-degree rotation, and it's got some gravity. This has got to be the most insane, wild ride I've seen in Kid vs. Cat in the Keep On Walking episode. Mr. Cat also learned how to fly in the sky? This is hilarious. I cannot believe Coop's grandparents reached up high in the sky as much as possible. 2 hours later, after escaping the abandoned chair store, what else did Coop's grandparents do in Bootsville? Coop's father, Bert, made his parents a new hot air balloon ride. That's cool. It looks like they're gonna like the new hot air balloon ride that Coop's dad made. Coop's grandparents got in, and what did they tell their grandkids? Coop's grandparents waved their hands, and they said, "Goodbye, Coop, and also goodbye, Millie. Enjoy the rest of your time." Coop and Millie also waved their hands goodbye to their grandparents. After waving their hands goodbye to Coop, Millie, and their father, Coop's grandparents returned back to where their home is. Coop's grandparents also did not return to Bootsville after visiting Coop's house. Coop and Millie went on to resume being without their grandparents. Can we count the amount of appearances for Coop's grandparents in Kid vs. Kat? Yes, we can. As you all know, their first appearance in Kid vs. Kat is their show's half-hour Christmas special. Well, there goes Coop's grandparents' final appearance in the Kid vs. Kat episode Keep on Walking. Coop's grandparents appeared in Kid vs. Kat 2 times at the moment, a little more than Black Diamond and Kyle Dustin from that show. Coop's grandparents also have less appearances than Fiona Munson, Henry Lou Chan, Phoebe, Miss Brannigan, and many others. Keep on Walking was also the only Kid vs. Kat Season 2 episode featuring Coop's grandparents. The same characters that I saw are also never-before-seen Kid vs. Kat characters. And now, time for me to make my opinion on Coop's grandparents. Coop's grandmother from Kid vs. Kat reminds me of I Love Lucy, the black and white TV show. She also reminds me of TV shows featuring Betty White, for example, The Golden Girls and Hot in Cleveland. Coop's grandmother has been doing pretty great being next to Coop and Millie at home, and she also helped Coop save Bootsville. Not only that, but also stopping Kat. Moving on to Coop's grandfather. Coop's grandfather from Kid vs. Kat reminds me of male oldie singers Elvis Presley, Andy Williams, Chuck Berry, etc. He also reminds me of classic pop icons Elton John, Paul McCartney, etc. What's good for Coop's grandfather is that he also hangs out with Coop and Millie for a short time. He even helped Coop put other things back where they belong. He also surprises Coop with a brand new gift that they also have. He even got revenge on Mr. Cat, too. I almost forgot that Coop's grandfather also has the same hairstyle as Bert. Both Bert and Coop's father have the same hairstyle. Incredible. I know for a fact that their hair colors might change again entering the 2020s era. Other possible things that Coop's grandparents did before the 2000s era. They were in their 20s or in their 30s being with their kids. They might also be playing oldies on a vinyl music player. If Kid vs. Kat returns for a 3rd season, it would be Coop's grandparents making more appearances. I also do not see them fighting cancer in the show. I'm giving Coop's grandparents a 10 out of 10 rating since I keep seeing them being great grandparents. And that's how the 11th Talking Kid vs. Kat podcast episode will end. If you enjoyed it, you can follow the Talking Kid vs. Kat podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Mr. Demon Cat. I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.